Hello, everybody. If you are here, drop a comment in the chat so that I know you're here. We'll give it a couple minutes for notifications to go out. Hi, Kimberly, and people to find me tonight. Um, I'm much more prepared this week than I was last week. I wasn't, scrambling 5 minutes before I had to go live and like die cutting still. So much more prepared tonight. So hopefully everybody is having a good week. Mine has been something. Hi, Pam. Welcome in. Hi, hello, Lynn. Yeah, it's been a week. Let's just leave it at that. Oh my gosh. But I am in a junk journal class this weekend, doing a Cinderella junk journal with Junk Gypsy Sisters. Their website is actually Sisters 3 Emporium. They're in the process of changing their name over to Junk Gypsy Sisters. And they do some fabulous, fabulous junk journal kits and classes and starts. They sell on an app called Whatnot. Usually on Monday nights, they do an entire show on Monday nights with a lot of junk journal starts and elements like cards, and they'll do shows occasionally that are just like books, like the golden books and whatnot. And they are responsible for probably 90% of my stash for that stuff. So all right. Happy Thursday. Thank you for being here. Tonight, we are going to talk about cards. And the reason this came up is I was talking to somebody earlier this week about somehow the discussion of cards came up, and she said something about having a MISTI, which is the stamp tool, and not knowing how to use it. She wasn't sure how to use it. She didn't know how to do embossing, a few other things. And I was like, aha, this is easy. This is something that's easy to learn. It's not nearly as difficult as it looks. And I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to do this week. So let's talk card bases. So your standard A2 cards are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Okay. So I tend to do mine top folding, and we'll actually cut one here in a second. As opposed to, you can do like side folding. Even when I'm running them landscape style, I still like to do them top folding, simply because then the recipient is able to stand it up and display it when they get the card. So I do the same thing when I do the portrait ones. I very rarely do mine where they open to the side. Okay, so that's standard A2 card. You can get 2 A2 cards out of one 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper. So I'm going to show you how I typically do mine, and we'll do them both directions. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard, and for this one, to do the top folding like this, with the 8 1/2 along the top, you're going to score at, no, I'm sorry. This is to do the landscape card, not the portrait card. See, exactly. I like to be able to stand them up, and we'll talk another tip on that here in just a second. So for this style that folds along the, if it's opening like a normal card, or if you're doing the landscape that stands up, 8 1/2 at the top of the scoreboard, you're going to score it at 4 1/4. Now, why am I scoring the whole sheet when I'm going to cut it down? Because then you're only scoring it once. So if you want to go through and prep a bunch of card bases so they're ready to go, and then you just have to put your, decorate them or stamp on them or ink blend or whatever it is you want to do, you've got them ready to go. Okay. So to do this type with the top fold, you're going to put your 11-inch across the top, and you're going to score at 1/2 inch. Okay. So then you're going to cut them. Where'd my trimmer? Oh, there's my trimmer. It was like, I know it was here earlier. Okay. So for this one, we scored at the 5 1/2 inches. Okay. And I realize it's very hard to see score marks on camera. We're going to cut this at 4 1/4. So in half the long way. And there's your top folding A2 card base. Okay. Easy peasy. The other one where we scored it long ways, you're going to cut at 5 1/2. And then you've got your top folding landscape A2 card. It's very simple. That's the most common size of card. And I will say the cardstock that you use as your base does make a huge difference. You don't want your card to be floppy. Okay. I buy for my bases. What is it? This is the one I buy for my bases on Amazon. It is International Paper, Accent Opaque Digital, 8.5 by 11, 120 pound. I believe it's cover. Yes, 16-point cover weight, 120 pound. Okay. Then they are nice and heavy. They're not going to, once you put elements on there, you're not going to have half of it kind of pushing down. It just makes for a sturdier card. Okay. The other card size two card sizes that you see quite often are slimline cards and mini slimline cards. So for those I actually kind of drew it out for you. So for a slimline card, you're going to start with a piece that is 7 by 8.5. So you would take your 8.5 by 11 and you're going to cut it to 7 inches. Okay. You're going to score on that 7-inch side at 3.5 inches so that when you fold it, you have a long skinny card like so that will fit in like a business envelope. Okay. So for the matting and the layering, and I didn't talk about that on the other two because we're going to do that when I show you some techniques here in just a second. For matting on the slimline cards, if you want like the full front matted, you would do it 3.5 by 8.5. Okay, then you wouldn't see any of your white or whatever color card base. Okay, most card matting, you're going to take 1/4 of an inch off of the height and the width of your card to mat. Okay, mini albums, I only take 1/8 inch off. You have a much skinnier border, which you can absolutely do that with cards. Cards, I do tend to do that 1/4 inch difference just because it's fairly standard. I mean, that's the way most card makers are going to do cards of this type. Okay. So for matting and double matting a slimline card, your matting would be 8 1/4 by 3 1/4, and then the top layer would be 8 by 3. Okay. So something to think about. I don't make a ton that are this size. To me, this is a little bigger than I typically would do. Most of the time, if I'm not doing an A2 card, I am doing a mini slimline card. Still 7 inches, only this time we're 6 inches across. Okay. Still going to score it at 3.5. And what you end up with is this super cute mini slimline. So this, if I'm doing a slimline card, this is the size that I will do 9 times out of 10. There are lots of stamp companies that make products specifically for the mini slimline and for the slimline. There are matting dies, there are cover plate dies, that kind of thing. There are stencils. Tailored Expressions does a really cool, what they call a triple slim stencil. So it goes across a full 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and it's a layering stencil, and you get 3 separate card panels out of 1 sheet. It's very, very cool. One of my favorites. But again, with the matting on this, it would be 5 3/4 by 3 1/4, and then 5.5 by 3 to mat a double mat a mini slimline. These typically you have to find mini slim envelopes, which again, Tailored Expressions is probably my favorite stamp company as far as just the supplies and the basics and learning different techniques and whatnot. They are the absolute best. However, I have lots of Hero Arts dies. I have quite a few from Lawn Fawn and Mama which are both like super cute, like cutesy ones. Let's see, who else do I have? I don't know. I've got some Stampers Anonymous ones. There are so many companies out there. It's very easy to find like a niche as far as like what type fits your style. Oh, Altenew. Altenew does the most stunning flower stamps, and especially if you like to color and things and ink blend and whatnot, Altenew has some really, really amazing products. So, card bases. Let's talk about. Sorry, I'm trying to get my thoughts organized here. Let's talk about stamp platforms. So I have two different stamp platforms here. We have the Misty, which is probably the most popular. This is just the normal sized Misty. There is a mini Misty that is quite a bit smaller. I have it, I rarely use it. And then there's like I can't remember what they call it, but there's a big one that will hold like a 12 by 12 sheet of paper for like if you're trying to stamp onto a layout and you want to position it exactly, that would be what that one's for. I use this one pretty much every time I stamp. Rarely do I actually ever just use an acrylic block and stamp that way, except for a technique I'm going to show you towards the end tonight. But we're going to go over like how to use this here in a second. The other one is the stamp wheel from Altenew. So neither one of these are super cheap. The stamp wheel, they actually have come out with a larger version of it now that if I'd known a larger one was coming, I probably would have waited. But the stamp wheel is very cool in that you position your stamps and then you can turn them, and like I could position it, flip it over this way, position everything I wanted, flip it around, stamp it, rotate it, like with their layering stamps. That's what I was trying to say. I was like, what is it I'm looking for? Their layering stamps. This thing is like perfect for that. But in just playing around tonight, I did, or last night, I guess it would have been. I did this, the little sunshines in the middle of this card with the stamp wheel. Okay. So for that, all I did is I just took a totally normal stamp set that I had sitting around, which was a Doodlebug Hello Again. Okay. I took my stamp and I lined it up like so. We're just going to use the back side of this because I am not using this for an actual card anywhere anytime soon. And I literally just ink it up, flip it over, get it right back in its grooves, and press it down, and there you go. So then I would turn it this way so I know, okay, when I flip it back over, this is where it's going to go. And again, and continued on around, and that's how I got my little wreath of sunshines there. Okay, if I were getting really fancy, I would have used several of the flower stamps and made it like a whole bunch and made a pattern or something. But it's a cool technique and it's a cool tool to have. But far and above, I would recommend the Misty over this one every single time. The Misty is so much more versatile, which I don't know. There's probably things you can do with this that I haven't figured out yet because I don't use it as often. I use the Misty all the time. Hey, Fauna. So I'm sure there's things that I have completely missed on how do you do them, but it's okay. Okay, so the Misty. The Misty has this little hinged door. This is where your stamps stick, okay? There is a grid on the Misty to help you line up your stamps so you can get them straight, you can get them positioned exactly where you want them to go. They do come with one magnet. I have ordered an extra one for mine. These little pickup stickers are from Tailored Expressions, so they're just very handy. My Sweet Petunia is who makes the Misty. They are also the ones that make the glue press that I use pretty much all the time. They make a sticky sheet that you can get to put in your Misty to hold your paper still. And then they also do some like paper grid pads that you can put in here as well. So when you get your Misty, most of the time they'll have like 4 or 5 of the little paper grid pads in there with it, but I honestly have never used the paper grids. I've always had either a sticky mat, or I've just like washi taped it in there or used the magnets, or however. I've never used the paper ones. So this little foam piece is the one you will use if you're using the photopolymer stamps, so the little clear stamps. Okay, you need this in here to lift it up enough that you can stamp. So if I were to take our little test piece here and say I wanted that little sunshine right there in the middle, I've got my paper right where I want it. My magnets are going to help hold it where I need it to go. You're going to lay your stamp where you want it, close the door on the Misty, and press down, and it will pick up that stamp. Okay. Then you're going to ink it up, and I'm going to purposely not ink it enough. And oh, look, I didn't ink it enough. Because of the way this works, this did not move. So I can very easily come in here, ink this up better, and stamp it exactly where I stamped it the first time, and not have it, you know, stamping off to the side or a halo or anything like that. So that is the entire purpose of the Misty, is to be able to control your stamping and get better quality stamping. Okay, so I've just lost my train of thought. I know. Okay, so if you've got the rubber cling stamps, like this is Gathered Greenery from Tailored Expressions. It just happened to be in the top of my drawer. I'm going to do the exact same thing, lay it in there, pick it up with the lid, but we don't want that foam in there because you can see this doesn't close all the way with the foam in there with the rubber stamps. Okay, so you will pull the foam out. This is where, especially where the little sticky mat comes in handy, because you can stick your card panel in here. It sticks to the mat, the magnet holds the mat still, and then you stamp. Okay, super, super easy. So we are going to talk easy to make card panels. So if you have only been one who has only done cards with like cut aparts from paper collections, so you know, Doodlebug, Echo Park, Simple Stories, whatever it may be, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with those. Those can be so, so cute. You know, if you embellish them up and you pop everything, and you know, especially like with Doodlebug, when you get the odds and ends and the chit chat in there, there's so many things you can do. But if you want to take your card making kind of beyond that, that's what we're going to kind of talk about tonight. So first thing we are going to do is we are going to do a couple of blended and then stamped panels. So, and we're going to emboss. That was the other thing that the lady I was kind of chatting with the other night did not know how to do, was emboss. So, sorry, I've got like my silly, I keep getting spam calls. Sorry. We're also going to emboss, and I'm going to show you. So on this one, and I don't know if we're going to be able to see it, if I'm going to be able to get the light to hit it just right. When I was doing this last night, I didn't make sure my panel was completely dry before I poured the embossing powder on there, so this entire front got clear embossing powder on there, as opposed to just the little stamped leaves that I wanted, like this one did. So we're going to talk about how to avoid that. So let me grab my glass mat, and I'm going to grab a little non-slip thingamajig here, And the first one we're going to use cilantro and avocado inks. And I am pretty sure that was not the brush that I meant to use last night, but you know what? It's okay. All right. So what I'm going to do, glass mat. Glass mat is incredibly handy for stenciling and ink blending because it's much easier to clean the ink up off after the fact. You're not wasting a bunch of it like on your paper and whatnot. You're just blending. So I am going to get some ink on my brush. I'm going to tap a little bit off on the mat because I can pick it back up off the glass mat. And then I'm going to come in from the side and slide my paper around apparently. And just big circular motions, okay? Now the reason I'm coming in from the side, because if I come directly onto the paper, you see how I get like a splotch, which is fine. It's not a big deal. A lot of times you can ink blend over them and make them go away. Sometimes if the ink pad's super juicy, you can't. So that's where I will tap off first, and then I can go back over and pick that ink back up with my brush so that I'm not having ink go onto scratch paper that I can't reuse and that kind of thing, okay? So, and I didn't grab like a scrap, did I? Okay, so I'm going to just kind of rub the extra ink off of my brush because I clearly did not get the right brush for my avocado. Is actually got something else on it now that it shouldn't have, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to come in with my avocado and I'm going to tap off because this one I know is juicier because it's a newer pad. And I'm going to kind of blend into the middle here. And that's just going to be a different tone of green. It's got kind of a brown undertone to it. And it's just going to add some depth to our ink blending. So I could do a rainbow blend. Rainbow blends are actually really fun. They're very fun and they're very kind of therapeutic. No, that's the right one. Okay. By all means, let's flip the ink pad upside down, which honestly happens to me all the time. Okay, so we've got that avocado there in the middle. Okay, so that panel is blended as much as I'm going to blend it tonight. Let's grab our second one. And on our second one, we are going to use spearmint and gumdrop, which are actually the challenge colors to this month for Tailored Expressions. They do a challenge. All you have to do is, it's either going to be a color or a technique or something. And they randomly will draw 4 people at the end of the month for gift certificates. So that's been one of my goals for this year, is to actually use all of this stuff that I buy related to stamping, because at this point I am a stamp collector and not a stamp user, it feels like. And I'm trying to do better with that. So this is our other card. This is the spearmint and the gumdrop. And I'm going to blend this one a little bit differently than I did the first time. So I'm going to start with my spearmint, and I'm going to kind of come in on this end, or this corner. I know what I'm trying to say. Okay. Another trick, if you don't want to, the small ink squares, I love them. And I've got the full-size ink pads. I've got the small ones. I have the small ones mostly because if I just need to grab something to get the edge of my paper, that's like perfect and they're right there. But they are really handy for this kind of stuff. And you can take them with you to crops and things if you need to. and they don't take up a ton of space. They're amazing. Yes, using the supplies we buy can be difficult. Oh my gosh, can it ever be? I am definitely not good at that. Okay, so we're going to stop right there with that. I'm going to rub off my excess ink on my little scratch paper here. I'm going to come in with the gumdrop, which is the more kind of turquoise, tealy color. I'm going to turn this around, and this one's super juicy because I literally just got this one in December. It is a brand new color. I'm going to come in from the other side. Ooh, see? Haha, there's a perfect example. I didn't tap off first. Do you see how I have this nice big smear right here? That's why you tap off first. So I will blend that out as best I can. And if I can't blend it out well enough, you know what? It's still okay. It's ink, it's handmade, it's not going to matter. It's not going to be perfect. None of them are ever going to be perfect. And the sooner you're okay with that, the better off and the happier you'll be crafting. Why buy supplies to use them? Right? Oh my gosh, I know. It's awful because I am like the absolute worst at going, ooh, shiny, and I buy it. I get it home and I get all excited, and then I get sidetracked with another project that like has to be done. And then I go, what did I buy this for again? Yeah, all the time. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my other side with the spearmint, and I'm going to get in the middle here and blend the two together, which they're not too far off, honestly, so it's fairly simple to blend them in together. One tip, if you are trying to get a nice dark blend on something, if you start with colored cardstock in the same shade as what it is you're trying to blend or to get darker, so like if I was doing like a night sky and I wanted it to be super dark at the top and lighter at the bottom, I would start with the lighter color of cardstock, and then I just have to ink blend my top, and it makes it easy. So just a little tip. I cannot talk tonight, I swear. Okay, so that I do not screw it up like I did these last night, what we're going to do is we're going to take our little heat gun here, and I am going to dry these. It only takes a second. Hopefully this isn't too loud. Okay, so now I know these are going to be good and dry. Let me go ahead and wipe this off before we go on to our next step. So now we are going to stamp this little vine pattern on top of our blended panel. So this is one of these things that you can just have a couple of very general background stamps that you can make them look a little bit different every time you use them by doing your ink blending and then stamping. Okay, so we are going to stamp this with VersaFine Clear. This is a pigment ink, which pigment inks do not dry quickly. Okay, which is what we want because we're going to emboss the ink, the leaves that we're going to stamp on here once we've stamped it. Okay, so I'm going to take, and this is the other thing. So last night when I was playing with this, aside from the fact that I totally covered one in embossing powder that I didn't mean to, I also picked up my Versamark pad, which is the watermark clear sticky ink that you typically would use to emboss, and we are going to use it on something else. And I went onto my ink pad and realized, oh, there's black ink on here, and I completely destroyed my pad. I mean, it probably is okay, but I would absolutely not want to use this on something like where I'm trying to emboss on white cardstock with clear embossing powder with Versamark that's got black ink on it. So I had to order new ink last night. So that was fun. So, VersaFine Clair does come in other colors. I just have the black because when you're stamping like sentiments and things, especially if they're really fine lined, like this is a fairly fine lined background stamp, it stamps very, very clearly and just pretty much perfect in one go. But that's why we have the Misty, so if it doesn't stamp perfect, we can just stamp over it again. Okay, so I'm going to put that down, press, and there we go. So my panels that I blended are a full 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 because even if you're going to trim it down and you want it to be smaller on the front of your card, start with that bigger panel, because if you've got an edge that maybe doesn't look as good, you can trim it off. And as opposed to if it's the exact size that you want on the front of your card and like an edge isn't quite right or whatever, you don't have, you're not going to have to like restamp your panel. Okay. And I actually did screw this up again. So prior to stamping this, I should have gone over it with my powder tool. Okay. Again, Tailored Expressions, I'm telling you, they are amazing. They've got the best tools. I should have gone over that. However, this one, it wouldn't be as important as like where we did dry the panel first. It's not going to be as important as like if I'm doing a sentiment, okay? Or I'm stamping onto colored cardstock, or I'm stamping somewhere that there's other elements that I don't want embossing powder to accidentally stick to, okay? So this is Wow Clear Embossing Powder. Theirs is really good if you can get it. Brutus Monroe actually makes really good embossing powder. And since when I'm embossing and I managed to do it again, it is still not dry in the middle of this panel. So you see how, like over here, it only stuck to the inked part. The middle of this is not dry because you can see how that embossing powder is stuck all over this. Okay, which absolutely is not the intention, but it's what happened to me again. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, white, black, and clear are the three that I use probably the most. I have colored, but I buy, if they come in bigger packs, like a bigger jar, that's what I had done with this, was a big jar of the clear embossing powder that then lives in this little container because it makes it really easy to get the powder on stuff and then like not get it everywhere when you're trying to cover it. So I'm going to grab this with my tweezers, and since we've screwed this one up, we're gonna emboss it anyway. Okay, so okay, I'm not finished embossing, but you see how that color changed? That is where the embossing powder has melted onto your card. Okay, so that one, even though it's more embossed than I would have liked, is ready to go. So from this point, I would just trim it down to the size that I want on the front of the card, stick it down, add sentiments, add die cuts, add whatever it is I want to use. Which really, this is a pretty enough one. You could just do a sentiment, like a bigger one in the middle here, and call it good. And it would be pretty and ready to go. So when you're embossing, and you will have seen how like the color changed as I was going, right? That's what you're looking for to make sure you've gotten everywhere. Okay. You're waiting to see that color change back and usually get just a little bit shiny. Okay. So this one our other one, we are going to do correctly. And I am going to dry this a little bit more. Okay, this one we're going to do the right way. So, should be dry. I'm going to take my powder tool and I'm going to go all over this panel. Okay. Then, and you don't want to do that on top of your sticky mat because you will ruin your sticky mat. Ask me how I know. Okay. So we're going to ink this back up. Stamp tool. Okay. So this time, I apparently just bummed up the corner, but that's okay. All right, I'm going to pull this off. I will clean this off later. I'm going to get it out of the way before I open that embossing pad because we're not doing that again. Okay, so we powdered it, we put our stuff on there, or we stamped our image on there. Now, when I go to put the powder on, assuming it's all nice and dry, the way it's supposed to be, the embossing powder only stuck to my leaves. Okay, so there we go. Much, much better. Get the edges here. Okay. So this time when we emboss, you'll see the color change over the leaves, except right there where I just messed up the embossing powder. But that's okay. Okay, there we go. So we have nice embossed leaves on our nice little panel. All this needs is trim down, put on a card base and a sentiment, and you're good to go. Okay, so the next little technique, kind of along the same lines, we were gonna, oh, let's not drop the thing. Grab my other little box of supplies. Is emboss resist. So again, this is a background stamp. This is a shiplap background stamp, stamped onto white cardstock and embossed, and then ink blended over the top. Okay, this is actually even easier, and this is one of those like super cool techniques that makes it look really fancy, and it's really not that hard. So we are using the shiplap background, but first you're going to take our little powder tool. You're going to go all over this panel. Okay. And then we're going to put it in our MISTI. We're going to grab our stamp. Pick it up with the lid. We're going to open our brand new clean Versamark pad. Make sure the VersaFine Claire is far, far away from us right now, so that we do not have a repeat of last night. And then I'm just going to tap. It's nice and juicy, even better. Tap this on. You're not going to be able to see anything. It is clear ink, clear sticky ink. Okay. When you're actually the one working with it, you will be able to see where it is. I don't know if you can see that on camera. Yeah, a tiny bit. Not the best, but that's okay. Okay. going to leave this in here because we're actually done with the MISTI. So my other technique does not use the MISTI. Okay. So I'm going to take this, grab the embossing powder again. And this is a technique you can do this on colored cardstock with white embossing powder and then not even ink blend. You could do this on colored cardstock with clear embossing powder and then ink blend something else over the top of it to make it look more distressed. There's lots and lots of ways you can do this. Okay. So, to grab that, and we are going to emboss it one more time. Okay. All right, so that is now embossed. Now you can kind of see the pattern. And literally all we are going to do with this, take some gray ink, and I'm going to lightly blend over the top of this. Okay. All right. Literally, that's it. And then you take a cloth of some kind, and you're just going to kind of buff over the top of that to wipe any of the ink that's sitting on top of the embossed areas off. And there's your panel. So easy. So fun. And you can do this kind of technique with any stamp set you have. Okay. So now at this point, I'm sure going, okay, well, I don't have background stamps. I just have small stamp sets like Doodlebug, or like the small ones from Lawn Fawn, Mama Elephant, some of the super cute things like that. This is what we're going to make. Okay. So we are going to do a random stamping technique. And then I've actually got our other little pieces stamped ready to go. And depending on where we are time-wise, so I'm not keeping you here all night, we may or may not color them on camera. But all you need is an acrylic block and whatever colors that you want to use. Okay. So I've got my little panel here. What you want to do with this technique is you want to start with the biggest stamp that you're going to use, which in my case is the little yarn ball from the Pretty Kitty stamp set. Okay. So I am going to ink it up and stamp it. Actually, I did still want my glass mat. Where did I just put it? Oh, there it is. Because we're going to stamp kind of off the side on a couple of these to make it look more organically random, I guess. Okay. So off the side there, off the side there. Turn it different directions. one more partial over there, and then there. Okay. So there's our first image. Okay. The resist technique, honestly, is one of the very first ones I used when I very first started paper crafting. I had a friend that sold close to my heart, and my husband, because he'll tell everybody it's his fault that I do this because he forced me to go to a little open house thing she was having with the close to my heart stuff. And it was like this little craft club. They got together once a month and made a project. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go because I'm honestly really antisocial and very introverted, except apparently when it comes to craft stuff and Disney. Um, but he literally was like, I'm going to drag you over there kicking, screaming if I have to. You're going. And I said, okay, fine. And we did an embossing resist technique. And I was like, okay, this is so cool. And it just down the rabbit hole from that point on. Okay, so I'm going to take my next image, which you're going to go with your next largest, which in this case, because again, it's a doodlebug set, they're all very small. It's a sock. And we're going to pick another color, ink it up, and we're going to do the exact same thing again. And apparently I cannot let it help if I didn't have my little blending foam in the back of that. There we go, much better. And same thing again. You want to get some right at the edge. You want some of them to kind of go off the edge to make it, you know, random looking. Because it is incredibly hard to make something feel and look totally random when you're doing it yourself. It's very, very difficult. But this is one of these techniques that actually works really well for that. And if some of them aren't perfect, it's fine. It's a background. You're going to put other things on top of it. Okay. Let's go right here. Okay. So there's that color. I'm going to go to our next one, which is going to be a little orange paw print. Because of course it has to be orange because my cat is orange. My little Gus Gus. Okay. And then we're just going to do the same thing again. Okay. And remember to rotate how you're stamping your image. I know that's one of those things I have to keep reminding myself as I'm doing it. Because otherwise, I kid you not, they would literally all end up going the same way and I wouldn't realize it until it was done. Okay. We're going to call it good on those. And the last one I'm using is this little teeny heart. It's going to be our last little color here. We're not doing too bad on time. We might actually get to color some stuff. Okay. And again, I've got those blending foams. I store these in a carousel from Stampin' Storage that they just came out with at Christmas, I think it was, right around Christmas, for the little ink cubes. And it holds a ton of them. Like I have, what is it? There's like 82 colors of Tailored Expressions ink. And I've still got tons of room left. Now the full-size one is full, but that's okay. They are absolutely, I know they are not cheap. They are so worth saving up for, I'm telling you. I resisted for a long time. And they are, I wish I hadn't. But I will say, wait till they're doing free shipping. Because the shipping is usually pretty high. I'm not going to try to fix that one. It's okay. Okay. Get another one over there. I'm going to call it good. Okay. So at this point, I would trim this down. Okay. I do actually, for doing these, I actually do have a different trimmer that I use when doing cards typically. It's the only time I will ever use it is doing this kind of thing. So I don't like the edge of this one over here. And then we're going to take another 1/4 inch off down here. And there we go. We have cleaned up the edges of our panel. This is ready to go on a card base. But I also had stamped out my little images here, and I had colored them earlier. So honestly, cats are like incredibly fun to color because there's not really a wrong way to do it. And they're just fun. Okay, so my chair, I kind of wanted to make it look plaid. So this was mostly me screwing around this afternoon, but it worked really well. So I'm going to show you how I did it. So I'm coming in with G5.1 and Olo, which I do have an affiliate link for Olo in the video description. Olo just came out with mini packs. So like eight markers that are kind of coordinated together to get you started with them. And if you've got Copics or you've got the Uhuhu, I think that's what they are, or something like that, you're absolutely fine. You've got Spectrum Noir. I would tell you to get new pens because those are just, they're not good. Their color is not consistent and they dry out super fast. What makes the Olo alcohol markers different from the Copic markers and pretty much all of the other alcohol markers? This entire, take it apart. This entire barrel is ink. There's not a felt piece in there that soaks up part of it where you can't use all your ink down to the last drop like pretty much every other alcohol marker. That's where these are unique. They also are sold in these little half markers, okay? You get, for every 2 you buy, you get a little connector ring. They just screw together. So if you're going to a crop for the weekend and you've got a bunch of things, stamped out that you want to color and you kind of know which colors you need, you can literally go through and build your pens and take them with you. It's no, I didn't mean to color over my button, but you know what? It's fine. It's just incredibly cool. I don't know how to explain it. I have had better luck. I've had the Altenew alcohol inks. I've had the Spectrum Noir, which that's where I'm speaking from experience when I tell you they're not good. And these are by far the best ones I've used. I had Copics at one point in time and just did not like those. So the most common one is the brush nib, which is what I've got right here. And they also sell a chisel nib. So most card makers just have the brush ones. I have both just because I'm weird like that. Full set syndrome, I have to have it. But the chisel tip actually came in handy for what I'm doing now to create my plaid. So I'm literally just going to draw lines. Okay. And I'm going to get them kind of off center from the ones below them on here because the fabric is never going to match up exactly. Okay. And then I'm using that chisel nib again and I'm going across. And I know right now you're kind of going, okay, this looks like garbage. Believe me, I know. I thought the same thing when I was playing around earlier. But I'm going to show you how we make it look cute. Okay. going to go back to my lighter color and I'm going to blend. And that is going to soften up those lines and it's going to make it look like a little plaid chair. Which I should not be doing this on top of the glass mat because if I have ink that soaks through the paper, which does happen with alcohol ink, it's going to pool up under there and soak back through the paper the other direction, and you don't want that. So I really shouldn't be doing it on top of this, but it's okay. So look how that blended back out so that it wasn't so harsh. So there you go, little coloring technique there. Let me grab, oh, did I put that one back? I had one do something really weird on me earlier today. We're going to grab a little brown for our feet here. And if you're new to coloring with the alcohol inks, start with small images because you don't have to ink blend. You don't have to get, the exact right blend or contrast or shadow or anything else. You can learn the feel of the pens starting with small things and then move on to bigger things. I am by no stretch of the imagination at all, even remotely, very good at this. um, but you can learn it and it's not nearly as hard as you would think. Okay, so I want my darker. So we're going to do the little yarn ball. I'm doing an RV 1.7, which unless you have Copics, or not Copics, Olos, this will mean nothing to you. And of course, if you were following and making the same cards, you would probably do your own colors anyway. But I'm coloring in the space between the yarn, the strings, okay, with the darker color. And then I'm going to come in with my lighter and I'm going to, with the very, very tiny, tiny tip. And this, I'll tell you right now, does take some practice. It's not easy, but it can be done. And I'm coloring in the lines of yarn that are wrapped around the little kitty's head. And coming off the side here. Get that out of the way. And then I'm just going to blend over the top of the rest of the yarn ball. And that's going to give me my shading. Pretty cool, huh? Thank you. I'm glad you liked the plaid. I was so happy that worked out today. I was like, oh, that came out way better than I thought it would. Because you never know. Okay, laundry basket. I am doing cool gray 0 and cool gray 1. And you're going to see, especially on the 0, you're not going to see a lot of color. Even in person right here in front of me, I'm not seeing a lot of color. But it gives it that depth where, like a real laundry basket isn't going to be pristine white. It gives it that little bit of depth, okay? I'll come in with my next darkest, and I'm going to go underneath his little paw. I'm going to go between the holes in the basket and right here along the bottom where it would be sitting on the floor, okay? All right, you just barely see that difference, and that's all you want. You just barely want that difference. And then I'm going to come back with the lighter color to blend it out. And there's our laundry basket. Okay, so then I was trying to match my socks in the laundry basket to the socks that I stamped. So I had the snow cone ink, and this is really dang close to it. This is B0.5. And I know there's like I cannot remember the explanation of the numbers on these. I just know when I'm looking at them all in their little rack here. And you're going to be like, oh, Jennifer, you have a problem. When I am looking at them in their rack, you can kind of see how the color graduates across. That all, something with the numbering, and I can never remember the life of me, so I literally will just pick colors. I'll look at my swatch chart, pick colors, and test them on my little, you know, paper that I color on, so you can see, like, there's a ton of tests on here. Test it, see if it blends out the way I want it to. If it does, then I use it. If not, I pick another color. That's my process. I don't know. Okay, so then I'm going to do a V1.1, which is a very, very light kind of pink violet. I'm going to get that little guy right there and get where he kind of ducks down inside. And then what did I do? Oh, I did a yellow. This was really kind of fun to color these little like laundry pieces that are sticking out here that you see. It was just something kind of fun. Okay. All right. So now we're going to do kitties. So what my thought on the cats was, I don't know. I literally just started coloring them. I was like, oh, that looks cute. Oh, that looks cute. So we're going to do our little laundry kitty with a warm gray 7. So it's a darker gray. And I know you're probably like, warm? Really? No, seriously, like when you get them next to each other, you can see it. I don't know how else to explain it. It's interesting, to say the least. And then that's it. The kitty is colored because he's a little black and white patches. Okay. So then let's do this little guy. So this little guy I did 3 colors on. So I'm going to take my cool gray. I'm going to get a little patch up here. I'm going to get the tip of this ear. And I'm going to get one little paw. And we're going to put a little patch on his chin right here. Okay. And then I am going to take, I believe it was this one. Yes, OR, so orange red 4.4. And we are going to give him another little patch here, a little spot here, and here, and on his little leg. And this is why coloring cats is so much fun, because you can do pretty much whatever with them. There we go. And he's colored. So I'm going to stay with this color. I'm going to go do my little yarn kitty as a little orange kitty. And we'll see if my other color here wants to play nicely. I had an issue, which I've never had happen before, and I don't know. I think the nib was loose on one of it. So I ended up with like some splotches that I did not want. So what I typically will do is I'll take the tip and I'll just kind of go along the edges of wherever it is I'm coloring, and then go back and fill in the middle. Okay. And especially with this little guy where we're not trying to blend or shade or anything like that. I'm not worrying about shadows. I'm just gonna color him. Okay, so let's see if my other brown is gonna play nicely now. I think we'll be okay. So I'm just gonna come in, give him some little stripes. And all I'm doing for that is just kind of flicking. And there we go. We have our kitties, we have our chair, we have our laundry basket, and then all I would need to do is grab my dies, die cut these out, add a sentiment, which I stamped it on this, and I decided my little piece I cut for my sentiment was too big and I don't really like it. And I think I need it in this same one of the colors that's on the card. So I will end up restamping that. But there you go. That's about it. So hopefully you've learned something. If nothing else, maybe you're entertained and you're going, oh my God, she's an idiot. She doesn't know what she's talking about. That was funny. Then that's great too. And I don't know, drop in the comments what you want to see me do maybe next week. And I'll see you again next week. I might try Wednesday next week rather than Thursday. Thursdays are kind of exhausting at my house, it feels like. So I'm kind of thinking Wednesdays might be better, but we'll try that next week and see how Wednesday works. But thank you guys for watching and hanging out with me tonight, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.